Which mechanism can the body use to actually handle continuously raised or rising stress, diet, and lifestyle-induced acidity levels? When the blood buffering capacity reaches exhaustion and the acidity in the blood continues to rise, the body has two choices. Dump alkaline minerals from bone and muscle reservoirs into the blood and lymph system to help balance acidity, or deposit the acids into the tissues, remove them from the blood, and this is meant to be only a short-term solution. But if tomorrow is another day of stress, lifestyle, and sad diet, then acids slowly accumulate day after day and year after year. Prime deposit sites for these kinds of wastes are the connective tissue, the so-called matrix, all over our body, starting usually in the periphery, like hands and feet, or in the subcutaneous tissue, the so-called underskin, is also a perfect deposit site as well. So dumping explained in a bit more detail. When the body is forced to mobilize alkaline minerals from bone and muscle reservoirs long term, this will deplete muscles and bones over the years, leading into chronic muscle conditions and or osteoporosis. Deposition, on the other hand, is practically waste management. And if a city can no longer handle the amounts of waste it produces within the city limits, it is forced to transport the waste out and deposit somewhere in the outskirts. Our bodies do the same. Instead of dumping the waste downtown where all the core organs are, we start deposition in the connective tissues of hands and feet. That is where tendons, ligaments, and joints start giving us grief because they are on fire. No? This is why gout usually starts in the big toe, and why people suffer from all kinds of chronic inflammation like plantar fasciitis, carpal tunnel, tennis elbow, and so forth. The way we live, these chronic inflammations usually start the first time at the age of 30-35, which is, for most of us, after approximately 5 to 10 years of chronic stress exposure. If we don't pay attention to these early warning signs, tissues continue to take the load and the periphery fills up and more central tissues are being exposed to acidic waste, and over time, inflammation starts in more and more central tissues as well. So here we have a very interesting image of how our body is built on a cellular level. This image shows a slice through a random tissue. We have blood vessels and nerves coming through here. We have immune cells patrolling around. Here we have an adjoining organ or some other kind of distinguished cell formation, like a muscle. And in between everything, dotted or undotted, we have a gel-like substance which is the glue that holds everything in place, our connective tissue, also known as matrix. And this glue makes up for about 20% of our total body weight. We are a lot of glue and water, and these fibroblasts are cells that produce the gel. They live right inside their own gel production. Now imagine how all these different tissue types would be affected if their immediate environment is loaded with waste. We're getting closer now to why I'm actually telling you all this. In an exhausted, stressed body where natural balance is a thing of the past because of chronic exposure to stress, sad diet, and sedentary lifestyle, the deposition of waste in the outskirts is at that moment the lesser evil, because the alternative would be acidosis in the blood, which is fatal. No? Sounds like an easy choice, right? But in the chronically acidic person, acidity and waste no longer get removed properly, but accumulate instead. And the rising acid levels in these peripheral tissues then trigger the release of pro-inflammatory cytokines. And this person is well on its way into chronic inflammatory conditions.